Okay, did you know that the first slaves were white people? I know you're like, come on, bro. Now you pushing it. Well, let me say this. Uno reverse, and we're going to get right into it. Okay, let's look at the history and the origin of the word slave. Go down to what I have underlined. It says originally Slav, see Slav. So used in this secondary sense because of the many Slavs sold into slavery by conquering peoples. So let me just summarize. The origin of the word slave comes from Slav or the Slavic people who were white people. So the origin of the word slave comes from the white Slavic people. Okay. Now, let me say this before people hop in my comments. I'm not talking about the ancient system of slavery. That's ancient. I'm talking about the English word slave that comes from the white Slav or the Slavic people. Now, let's take a look at this painting. And this painting is by a white man, so you won't say it's Afrocentric, by Jean Leon Jerome. Okay. He painted this image. The black Moors were known to have Slavic people as concubines. The name of this painting is Pool in a Harem. They had them in harems as wives and as slaves. Okay. And again, nothing against the Slavic people, but the origin of the word slave comes from Slavs. Okay. And this is just a map in the definition of Slavs or Slavic people. That map was from the 7th to the 9th century, if you want more information. And if you Google Slavic people, they're white people. I don't think people going to argue me on that point. And again, nothing against these people. Now, this is the Arabic word, sakaliba, and it is a term used in medieval Arabic sources to refer to Slavs. And if you go down, came to designate Slavic slaves. Okay. Now, this painting is called The Great Bath at Bursa. Again, done by a white person, not an Afrocentric black man, because it was known that the black Moors, they had Slavic concubines and harems and wives and slaves. Again, this painting is called A Musical Interlude. And again, I'm not saying the ancient system of slavery. I'm specifically talking about the word slave comes from Slav, okay? Again, the word slave comes from Slav. The Slavic people were white people, okay? Uno reverse.
first trick comes in is before you get into the shrine, you must be a
Freemason?
A Freemason. That means you have to be a free man, right? Free from, free to. See, this is already assuming that everybody that wants to join was a slave. And if that's true, then how the Caucasians end up effing AM? Who freed them? The fact is that they were slaves because the actual word slave, as you know, means Slavic. And they were slaves to the Moors in Morocco and in Spain. You understand? And they were slaves to the Moors in Ireland and Scotland and Yorkshire in England, where you will find crests to this very day with pictures of Moors on the family crest of all of those countries. Africans up there, Moors. You hear me? So a Moor cannot be freed because a Moor was never a slave. You have to understand that there was a treaty made between George Washington and Sidi Muhammad of Morocco when America was losing the battle for us to bring in ships from Morocco and to surround America and protect the shore. You can look this up. And you know what happened? Boats of Negroes came. You know what I'm saying? George Washington was surprised because they had already had Africans in slavery. And the men that came to protect America were Negroes called Morenos. There's no Arabic word for Moor. They were called Morenos. So what they did is they called the ones that were here from Africa by slave ships Negra or Negra or Negro. Guess where that comes from? That comes out of the Bible in Acts chapter 13, verse 1. The word nigger is in your Bible. Simon, the brother of Jesus, is called nigger. And if you do some research under the word nigger in the Greek, you'll find out it means black-skinned person, which kind of tells you what Jesus really looked like, right in your Bible. You follow what I'm saying? So they called the ones that were slaves in America niggers or Negroes. And they called the ones they respected Morenos or Morena. And then the ones who married in, they called blackamoors. They were part African and part Moor. Now, any African who wanted to join a lodge, who was in America, a slave, had first to be freed. He had to be free because you have to be a free man. See? But the Moors didn't need to be free because we are the ones that initiated them and raised them and crossed them. We took them across the desert because they couldn't find their way from Saudi Arabia to Syria and from Syria over to Egypt. And it's a map of the constellation of Sirius that's in the sky. And that's the symbol that the original Hashemites would use. They would draw a certain marking, and that's what they say, and Jesus got down and marked something on the ground. That's a ritual symbol. You with me? So you had two groups now. You have the American Negroes who have been enslaved, accepted themselves as slaves. Then you had the Moors who came over here from Morocco. You follow that? Both of them are black as night, will not be here. And you can't free a Moor, because a Moor has never been enslaved. That's why we call ourselves United Nuwaubian Nation of Moors. And we demand that our sovereignty be recognized, because we have a treaty that we made with George Washington that's in the archives, and we can show it. And we can take our bloodline back and verify that you can't give me a charter from England. I gave you the charter, silly. You can't make me a Shriner. You don't even know how to say Shriner in Arabic. They make the mistake with all the certificates and put the word kubba in Arabic. It's just not kubba. A kubba shrine is where a dead person is at. Now, if you wait for me to give you the word, I'm not. Because that's one of the real sacred passwords that you have to find out in your own due time. You with me? So now you have this situation where you got slaves, niggers, and those who call themselves Negroes, and then a man called Prince Hall, who has a Caucasian father and a Barbadian French mother, who was also a slave, right? But he had to be free. So therefore, they referred to his lodge as a African lodge. But Noble Drew Ali, on the other hand, who went over to Egypt to study and into Morocco to study, came back and said, no, we are not Negroes. We are not colored people. We are not African Americans. The word Africa, Ifriqiya, means faraka, to divide up into pieces, to distinguish people from each other. It's not one of our words. That's not us. We're not Ifriqiyan, right? We're not Negroes. We're not colored. In fact, Caucasians got more colors on them than we do. They got blue eyes and pink skin and speckled and red hair, some, and brown hair, others, and green hair, and so much other stuff. Yeah, none of y'all are colored. So Noble Drew Ali came back, and through him came out the Nation of Islam, and they were trying to teach a form of Moorish doctrine, and it got lost along the way when money took over the logic, like in all situations.
All of these buildings all around here, as I told in class last night, they're ours. They belong to us. They're ancient, these buildings. There's a whole city underneath this city. They've been burned all the major cities, the major energy centers. Our ancestors set up these energy centers that we call Philadelphia, New York, Boston, Atlanta, Detroit, right? Chicago, Miami, Los Angeles. They are energy centers. They're not where they are in huge, large cities just because of some coincidence. There's energy and power in these places. London, Rio de Janeiro.
Let's jump right in. We've all heard of the 1871 Chicago fire, about how the cow tipped over the candle and burned everything down. They even named their soccer team after it, so we've all seen it, the Chicago fire. Well, one or even two fires isn't very convincing. Fires happen, right? But the Chicago fire was the only city that burned down, right? Wait, Boston burned down a year later? After Chicago? Okay, well, that's two fires. Big deal. Like I said, two fires is nothing. Accidents happen. Cows tip over candles and burn everything down once in a while, right? It was the 1800s. What do you expect? Everything is going to burn down. They didn't have water. Okay, maybe they did have water, but they didn't know how to use it to put out a candle. Well, it is kind of weird. They knew how to build these incredible structures, but didn't know how to put out a fire. Well, whatever, let's continue. What? You're telling me that Seattle burned down in 1889? New York had a Great Fire? In 1835. What? Pittsburgh had a Great Fire too? 1845? No way. Portland? 1866. San Francisco, 1851. Destroyed as much as 3/4 of San Francisco. Are you joking? What the heck? Okay, well, that is kind of a lot, but who knows? Could be a coincidence, right? Well, why don't we just keep going until it's not a coincidence anymore? Let's do it. Dayton, 1882. The fire burns blocks of downtown Dayton. Guess we'll never see that again. Thanks a lot. St. Louis, Great Fire, 1849. Milwaukee, Great Fire, 1892. More than 440 buildings burned down. Charleston, 1861. What caused it? Cook Fire, lighting this whole city up on fire. and burned over 540 acres. You kidding me? Richmond, 1811. A theater fire. Burning everything down. Portsmouth, 1813. Destroyed 500 buildings. Wow. Galveston, 1885. Burned hundreds of homes across 40 city blocks. Who knows what kind of buildings were in here? Who knows what kind of structures we could have seen that they burned down? Atlanta Great Fire, 1917. Let's get Toronto involved in 1904. Destroyed a large section of downtown Toronto. 1904. Gone. Gone forever. Troy, 1862. Gone. Dallas, Texas. 1860. A fire consumed Dallas. Let's stick with Texas. And of course Houston in 1912 was burned down. Blaze traveled more than a mile and a half. All of it is gone. Phoenix, 1916. It was caused by a spark from a generator, and the city's gone. Just destroyed because of another fire. No way did Philadelphia burn down too. Yep, it did. This one is the craziest of them all. It was caused by a lighter that was found near a tree. Give me a break. It's basically every single major city. I think you guys get the point. It is every single major city in the USA and even Canada. Yet we only really hear about the one, which is Chicago. Why is that? Can we all agree that all of these major cities burning to the ground and destroying all of the stone buildings along the way in a time frame of about 80 years is a little odd? I could be wrong, but I think it may be time that we just agree the controllers destroyed these cities and the ancient buildings that were there. Not some children's story that a cow tipped over the candle and burned down the entire city. Let's get a little deeper. Ellis Island officially opened as an immigration station January 1st, 1892. 1892, on the money. New Year's Day. They begin bringing these people over from Europe. Basically saying to us, hey everyone, come on over now. Everything is safe to look at now after we've burned everything down. Okay, so they burned things down for like a whole century. And then right after that, they say, all right, guys, come on over. You know, it's safe, basically. Incredible. And for a little bonus, I just wanted to throw in this star fort. I thought it was incredible. I saw it, and I think it was cool. I wanted to share it with you guys. It's Fort de Nasa, Senhora de Graça in Portugal. I probably pronounced that wrong, but you guys get the point. I just wanted to let you guys know that I thought that was a really cool picture. And it's interesting. It's one of those things you can only see from an aerial view. So they built it knowing that, you know, you'd have to see it from above.
I was at the St. Louis Art Museum this weekend, and when I saw this painting, I had to stand still. So much symbolism in here, starting at the left with the water and the people. That's representing the immigrants coming over here on a boat. When they told us that we came on the boat, it was not us, it was the immigrants. So they are arriving by ship carrying tools, flags, and goods. They are framed as bearers of progress and civilization. And then at the center, you have the female figures representing law, order, and enlightenment. The lion at their feet symbolizes dominance and imperial authority, while the cherubs represent the birth of a new nation built on conquest. Because remember, they were coming to colonize. We were already here, y'all. And then the angels, trumpets, clouds, and flags float above the scene, signaling heavenly approval. This imagery fuses nationalism with Christianity, representing expansion and domination as God-ordained acts. Because remember, God told them it was okay to do this. And then on the right, you have the indigenous and melanated figures are shown subdued, restrained, and in distress. No signs of their spirituality, nowhere to be found. They are portrayed as obstacles to progress rather than sovereign peoples. They're conquered. So we were prisoners of war. So this is showing how the immigrants came over here, and then we went to war with them. We lost the war, and then we became enslaved. But the way that they did it was through Christian symbolism. They used the Bible as a weapon to justify enslavement and obedience. The Bible was historically wielded to dismantle ancestral spiritual systems and impose control. The absence of indigenous and African cosmologies in the painting is very deliberate.
What to do, glitches? This video may be a little long because message. All quotes moving forward will be sourced from the Siblis, the first prophetesses of Mamiwata, The Theft of African Prophecy by the Catholic Church by Mama Zogbe, demystifying the absence of the African ancestress as the first divine prophetess on earth. Okay? Let's get into it. Y'all don't really want to talk about it. That the Vatican divining serpent derives from vadis, diviner, and can, serpent. So the Vatican City and St. Peter's Basilica were built on an ancient pagan site called in Latin Vaticanus Mons or Vaticanus Colli, which means hill or mountain of prophecy. Hebrew definition of Vatic: a seer, prophet, soothsayer, diviner. Then it goes into define what a soothsayer and a diviner is. Maps, and that says that current maps do not show the location of Babylon. Babylon in Egypt has now been removed from modern maps, but this is a map that shows the existence of Babylonia. Okay? It was once there. Now it's not. If we think outside of the Western patriarchal box, the idea of African practices and rituals and social cultures constructed by Black people would be hard to believe, right? It would be even harder to believe that at the crux of that civilization were Black women. The theological foundation of Islam, Hinduism, and Christianity are all rooted in the same African prophecy. It quotes, "The absence of African women in world history as major players, as opposed to exemptions to the norm or mere appendages of great men, has been problematic and disturbing at best." It goes on to say that the Black woman is the first prophet of the world, defined as the Siblis. So the great Siblis were the original divine oracles because they had connection with the divine maternal energy. So they had connection to that divine feminine. Webster's dictionary defines a Sibyl as a female prophet or a woman able to utter the oracles and prophecies of a god, or woman who can foretell the future. Conversely, under the bitter Hebrew patriarchs, the Sibyls are condemned in their Bible, not surprised, as Behaleth Ob, meaning evil serpent spirit or mistress of the python. So let's just stick a pin right there and go back to, i.e., the Holy Bible, i.e., the story of Genesis, and we'll get there. But how they demonized the serpent and the woman in the same story. When in reality, both are the origin of existence. I told y'all I got some crazy shit on the way, and it's rooted in the serpent being a metaphor for consciousness and how the woman was introduced to consciousness in the parable of the fall of man and the eating of the fruit, but it's really the possession of consciousness that was revoked from her. And so she then became banished or demonized for seeking higher consciousness. It seems men have always been intimidated by the intellect of the woman, more specifically the intellect of the original woman, more specifically, the intellect of the black woman. It goes on to say that the Sibyl were universally known as the Black Doves, and they referred to themselves as the Sisters of Isis. Doves symbolize the sacred soul or Holy Spirit, and they made them black. A mystical symbol that was later adopted by the Christians. So the black dove was our original sacred symbol. Them niggas over there, them crackers over there, flipped it and bleached it and made it white. A white dove is now a symbol of the Holy Spirit. Continue. It goes on to say that the Vatican was our sacred seat. Hello? It says that it was erected by African Buddhists and black Etruscans and etc. thousands of years before the Anglo-Romans arrived. So the Vatican is yet another thing they stole from us. Well, duh, but it says what is now called the seat of the Vatican in Italy was originally the sacerdotal seat of the ancient black Sibyls. It says under the theocratic governance of the Sibyls as queen mothers, the African matriarchal culture reached its golden age of achievement in medicine, religion, astronomy, philosophy, law, architecture, music, art, and social sophistication under the rule of black women. It says Sibyls heal sick and raise the dead long before Christ. It also goes on to say how the prophets would pretty much be in a trance. So they would be channeling spirit, and they would have assistants who would write down the messages that they were channeling. Y'all, why the white folk came and interpreted the text to their own understanding and use our prophecy as the foundation of their white nationalist colonialist ideals. I wish I was lying, right? It was these books that would later be plagiarized, revised, or altered and compiled into one holy book. Some of these prophetic books were used by the Vatican to compile what is known today as the Judeo-Christian Bible, crediting their authorship to conspicuous Roman and other male prophets. Those books for which it was hard to conceal their African matriarchal origins, guess what? We all know, were destroyed or registered as hearsay. The discreditation of the black woman and our influence on the existence of humanity needs to be studied. Okay? I said this was going to be a long video, and I'm only discussing the foreword. I haven't even gotten to chapter 1 yet. The gender of God was later changed from feminine to masculine. Peep this. Ready for your mind to be kaput? And this is the part of that video that's circulating about the girl who said that the white people made a 400-year spiritual pact with somebody to make sure that they could be above us. Check this out. It was the Sibyl's style of prophecy and magic that would later be imitated by a militant faction from these patriarchal Levitical groups whom, envious of her global positioning, rebelled the divine matriarchal order and seized their temples and overthrew their priesthoods. In their jealousy, hatred, and rebellion of her divine authority, the Levitical Jews elevated their original minor deity, Jehovah, as an insult to her. Together, Jehovah and his patriarchal clan usurped her sacerdotal and secular power. And from that moment on, they have worn it as their own. Couple more things I want to say before I run out of time. The New Testament is actually a historically chronicle of the final destructions of all remains of the African matriarchal authority. Books that were politically and not divinely inspired, which is why the Levitical Jews, enemies of the Roman Church, refused to recognize them as authentic. And it ends by saying many black women don't know that they're born with suffering that stems from their disconnection from the mother energy. Sisters! It concludes by saying, this author remains convinced that until this history is restored and African women are accorded their rightful place in the world, there will probably never be any peace.
Black people are the true indigenous of the Americas, says the president of Colombia, South America. Google says yes. Colombian President Gustavo Petro stated at the United Nations that black-skinned people are the true indigenous of the Americas, or words to that effect. Petro made the statement during an address to the 80th session of the UN General Assembly in September 2025. The statement reflects a historical claim that Negroid people existed in the Americas prior to the transatlantic slave trade, a perspective that challenges conventional historical narratives about indigenous identity. We told y'all, we know who the fuck we are, and the truth's gonna keep coming out.
The black-skinned people here, those who are ancestral here, that were thousands of years have been here, or young people, or women who don't want to see their children die of any color of their skin.
Everyone, salam alaikum. My brother, he came up to me and he said, "Are you American Indian?"
Yeah, Allah. Well, I went and see the style. I love you.
Yes, and he was like, the real Egypt. He's like, he knows. So I just want to say, shout out to him, much love, peace, and yeah, he knows. He said the real Egypt is in America.
Yeah, that's you. That's your land, guys.
He knows. Thank you. Chokran. Wake up, everybody. We the only ones that don't know. I come over here, everybody's taking pictures of me, asking me if I'm, Egyptian or Nubian, right? And then this one guy, he's like, "You're American Indian, yes?" And I was like, "Yes." And he said, "You all have a real Egypt." He's like, "The real Egypt is in America." So he knows. Exactly. I know. He knows.
The striking demographic fact about the Americas is that the black population of the US, which of course amounted at the time of the Civil War to something like 4 million people, those people did not come from Africa. They came as a result of natural population growth.
Yeah.
The slave trade to the US was shut down largely in 1807, not completely, but largely. So if you look at the census data for the US in 1870, which is when black people were finally included, you'll find almost no Africans. They were, of course, native African Americans. And that's not something that people have taken on board.
Okay, so why were 700 American Indians called Moors in the 1600s? Okay, well, let's take a look at this account by this author. Now, I'm not going to read this whole page. I'm just going to read what I have underlined, and he's going to give the description in the footnote, which is in the red box below. On the next page, I'm going to blow it up so we can read it clear, okay? Now, this is page 46 of Ancient and Modern Britons, volume number 1. Let's just read that, what I have underlined. It says, and Shakespeare uses the word Moor as a synonym for Negro. Remember that, that's important. Now, the original footnote is at the top. I just blew the text up below so we can read it clear, okay? And also, this is a white author, so this is not Afrocentric. Now, the book was written in the 1800s, but he is citing or quoting from a 1600s account when the colonists were fighting the native Indians. They literally called them Moors, okay? And he is saying when they were calling them Moors, they were talking about how they looked, and it was synonymous with the N-word, okay? And you can pause the screen and read the full context. Again, this is from a 1600s account. The colonists, they made reports on the Indians when they were fighting them, and they were calling them Moors. And I highlighted where they were calling them Moors, okay? And in the same footnote, he cites this Shakespeare play. It's The Merchant of Venice, Act 3, Scene 5. And the reason he does that is, look at what I have underlined. I'm trying to avoid the algorithm, okay? You see the two words I have underlined? Well, he's showing that because he's trying to show you that more doesn't always have a religious context. It can literally mean how someone looks, and it's synonymous with the N word, okay? That's why he cited this source, okay? So again, what he's saying is, when the colonists in the 1600s were describing these native Indians, and when they were fighting with these native Indians, they were literally calling these Indians Moors because of how they looked, and it was synonymous with the N word, okay? All right. Now, this is the source, Ancient and Modern Britons, volume number 1, page 46. And it's more than one volume, so make sure you get the right volume number 1, okay? And this is just a, close-up of where it says 700 Moors right here, okay? All right. And then, again, I blew it up if you makes it easier to read, okay? Y'all be blessed.
Say the weird thing. People are desperately seeking realness.
I was quite surprised to see you use the word Aborigines talking about African Americans.
I've dealt with that issue.
The Aborigines of these lands, now known today as America, were made slaves when the invading colonials arrived. But through the funding of the church, manifesting as Spain, Britain, and France, these colonials devised a plan in conquering the rest of the Americas. Spain knew of these lands before Columbus. They had struck treaties, or in other words, paid off or forced the indigenous leaders to give up their lands. The history books don't teach about these remaining empires in America during the 18th century. This plan was really a plan to wipe out the remaining threat of Aborigines and to create a false identity by shipping many blacks to Africa to create this society off the coast of Africa. They made up the lie of the Civil War in order to make you believe that they fought for black people's freedoms. The many abolitionists who developed during this period were said to be against slavery, but this is just a setup. It's like philanthropy. They wanted to make themselves seem like the redeemers, when all they did was completely brainwash and replace the sense of self with a foreign entity. Thomas Jefferson did reply to this plan by Anne Mifflin and said that this would be the most desirable measure in which could be adopted for gradually drawing off the black population. He endorsed it and thought that it should be the highest priority for the United States to make an establishment off the coast of Africa. This plan was well received by the rest of these forming new colonies in America, and the plan began to remove and indoctrinate the remaining population of the Aborigines of this land. These abolitionists from the North did not care about black people at all. Common for his times, Jefferson believed blacks were inherently inferior to whites and thought it was best the two races remained segregated. Many of us were given false histories, and our homelands were forgotten. But on a greater scale, our spiritual identities were lost. A new age began where we forgot about our own structures and architecture and the very cities that we now currently all share in America. The colonials did not build these cities. The groundwork for all major cities was built upon an existing civilization. That is the secret that has been kept from our education in order to enslave mankind under an exterior god, the god of materialism and death.
I'm going to say this very slow. Racism is a type of witchcraft. Racism is a type of spell casting. Racism is a type of ritual. Yes, it is systematic injustice and all that other stuff. But hear me when I say that it started out as some weird occult nonsense. When you study the history of the people in power that orchestrated everything that we're going through, all the way back to the Portuguese and Spain and the split of the Prime Meridian, there has always been occultic forces. The word occult means hidden culture. The word cult means system of beliefs. What they believe, and listen to me, is that the black race, right, represents the old world. You can look this up. Look up the Theophany Society. Okay. Look up the Knights of the Rose Order. Look up the Golden Circle. Like, for real. I'm being dead serious. Y'all don't really understand why these people believe in racism so much. It's not just hate. It's a religion. It is a form of ritual. Okay. And the original forces of this world, especially through the 16 and 1700s, that started the mechanism of which we're dealing with today, is because this is a ritual, a form of destiny swapping, okay? When you read The Observation Concerning Mankind, People, and Countries by Benjamin Franklin, written in 1755, you go to the last page, I think it's 224, he literally says that they brought Europeans over to America as a ritual for the gods of Mars and Venus, to homogenize them under the banner of whiteness to make a new people. He dead ass says that. And he says that he wants to take the sons of Africa and remove them from America. Okay? It was always a ritual, right? Isn't that why we have the apotheosis of George Washington in the Capitol building? You can look up and see him being depicted as a whole deity. Isn't that why the Washington Monument is the same as Osiris and it represents a phallic symbol? Is that why we have Greco-Roman structures all across this country representing the gods and deities of antiquity? Is this why JBL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, which was foundational in NASA and sending us to the moon, founders were also occultists? Same with Henry Ford. Same with all the companies. The people that built New York were occultists, and that's why that's such a hub for all of this stuff. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? Because in reality, when you look up the definition of Negro from the 19th century Britannica, what you see is that it was an exonym that didn't just mean people in Africa. It was Malaysia, Australia, the Polynesian Islands, and Asia, right? So, and that represents the old world. That represents the East. So if you don't understand what racism really is, it's a form of destiny swapping. It's a form of making the majority the minority, giving power to the minority. This is why they're always talking about the Great Replacement Theory and how the white race is dying out and they're not having children. They're being replaced by black and brown immigrants. They have been talking about this stuff for the last 400 years. And everything you've been seeing has to do with this fear. And they are literally using whole ass magic, witchcraft, to do it, to switch the dynamics of power, whether you believe in it or not. Racism is deeper than a form of systemic power within a caste system used to subjugate different people based on phenotypical expression. You look like this, so you're treated this way. Yes, that is the case. But there is a spiritual component to it, and this is why we can't get rid of it. Because people worship it, right? And what we have to understand is that the word Negro is really synergized with the alchemic word negrito or negredo. And they are trying to, off of the unaliving and mass destruction of black and brown civilizations. That's why the continent of Africa has been how it's been. That's why we're invading the global south, going into South America, attacking these countries. Because in reality, what is going on is that through the destruction of black and brown people, the white race will be able to transmute themselves into a new technocratic world where they fuse themselves with technology, transhumanism, with cybernetic enhancement, become the new pure race that's immortal, and they're cybernetically controlled to all technology, so they have access to all knowledge, and they're connected to all the drones and cameras, so they have pseudo omnipresence, and they'll be able to fling their arm and open up a door because it's all going to be automated. They'll be able to flick their hand and make money appear in your account like they're a deity because everything's going to be controlled through cryptocurrency. They're manufacturing the situation to literally make themselves God on earth. This is what they believe. So while, yes, racism and systematic injustice that all people deal with sucks within this prejudice infrastructure, but there is a mystic component to it. You know, even when we get into the word Caucasian, the reason why we call white people Caucasian, even though there's like an actual Asiatic type race in that area that's a little bit more darker or tan or whatever, is because they thought there was a piece of the Noah's Ark in the Caucasus Mountains. So by calling Europeans Caucasian, that was a way, and back then during the era of pseudoscience, where they could connect their lineage to Adam. I'm being so dead serious. So whether you're religious or not, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to educate you on what the people in power believe and the function of racism and how they practice it as a spiritual belief of superiority. The Ku Klux Klan, they literally called themselves Grand Wizards, right? At the end of the day, all these groups perform rituals to invoke fear, to hold power. To hold power. And that is textbook magic. For people who understand what magic actually is, then you know these people are performing magic. Straight up. Straight up. And racism is a complex form of spellcasting. It is. And we have to be aware of it because the stuff we're seeing and how they're trying to shift power, war is always the energy, the unaliving of all those bodies is always what they need to change the world. Like they did in World War I, World War II, now they're trying to do it again. To usher in the age of transhumanism and cybernetic demigods that walk the earth. I hope you're ready. So this is part 2 of how racism is actually a form of spirituality. It is a religion. And I think the best way to start this off in this part 2 is just breaking down the occult history of the United States itself. Okay, right? So right here, we're going to look at the United States Senate seal. And what you can see here is this liberty hat, right? This freedom hat. Really, this connects to the Roman cult of Mithras and Mithraism, right? A Roman deity who slaughters the cosmic bull. And the reason why this is important is because it actually connects to the myth folklore of Paul Bunyan and his giant cosmic bull as well. And what's so interesting is that depending on what images you look at, he has that same type of hat, right? And the reason why this is important is because this is the hat of the Magi that you also see in the Bible, right? The three Persian magicians that they changed to the three wise kings. And the reason why this is important is because you see, America has a cultic history, and what this history is about the rebirth of the nation, right? The rebirth of the white race. When you look at the goddesses of America, right, and they have on the same hat, anytime you see this, this represents rebirth. They slaughtered the cattle, right? That's why they did chattel slavery. And with this sacrifice, here you have manifest destiny. Once again, the goddess Colombia. Wow, just like Colombian movie pictures. And what you understand is that everything in this nation is repackaged worship, right? And we have all the old gods housed everywhere around this country. And they're constantly being worshiped all over, even in DC in the Capitol building. We have homages to all types of deities. And what you understand, like even people in power understand, is that America is the new Rome, and America has been trying to harvest this energy, right? So when I talk about this document right here, the observation concerning the increase of mankind, people, and of countries by Benjamin Franklin. This is the most important document that will probably help you understand their thinking. Because think about how this is in 1755 and it's still the same issues. So what do we say? The number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All of Africa is black and tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, and French and Russians and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion. That's interesting. As the Germans are also. The Saxons, the only accepted, who with the English make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. That's where we get Anglo-Saxon from. The Anglo was the English, and the Saxon was a German tribe. The Anglo-Saxons, these two groups, homogenized to make the pure white people on the face of the earth. I could wish their numbers were increased, and they were clearing America of its woods, so making this side of the globe reflect a brighter light to the eyes of inhabitants in Mars or Venus. Once again, these Greco-Roman gods, the eyes of the inhabitants in Mars and Venus, they're worshiping these beings. And this is all a ritual to make a new people. And a lot of people don't understand this. So when you read the book Race or Mongrel by Alfred P. Schultz, they literally say that the absorbing capacity of every race, however, is limited. It is our conviction that we are absorbing and have absorbed countless numbers of highly specialized Celts, Slavs, Latins, Scandinavians, and Germans. It is a presumption indicating paranoia, and external evidence alone prevents us from asserting that we absorbed the Negro in 2 generations. Probably a small amount of Negro blood can be absorbed by a large white community in 50 or 100 generations. Every trace of Negro blood will have disappeared. So yes, they literally meticulously calculated on how to wipe us out. And yes, the United States was an experiment by these Anglo-Saxon people in power to homogenize all the different European races under this banner of whiteness. And a lot of people don't really understand that. So once again, right, he called the Spaniards, Italians, French, and Russians swarthy complexion. So what does swarthy mean? So we look at swarthy being a dark-hued dust complexion, tawny in warm climates. The complexion of men is universally swarthy or black. The more Spaniards and Italians are more swarthy than the French, Germans, and English. So swarthy meant black. But y'all don't know that. Y'all don't know when y'all look up the anthropometamorphosis, man transformed, right? This was a document written in, I want to say 1656 by John Bulwer. And you can see that they depicted even Indians as swarthy, right? Because when you look at the definition, Negroid as an exonym meant populations of Africa, Southern India, Malaysia, Australasia. It was anybody that was dark skinned, varying from dark brown, reddish brown, whatever. So when y'all be having these, you know what I'm saying? These are useless conversations. Read this. Thus armed, the Indian with his dart and bow pursues with eager eye his woodland fowl. This is an Indian. Don't that look like a black man? Come on, what are we talking about? America. But look at that. Oops. Y'all ain't peep that the movie Atlantis on Disney is about us. But I been broke this down. Welcome to my page. Welcome to my page. Spanish for little Negro, Negrito, Malaysia. Oops. These people are heterogeneous to the land. That means they didn't migrate. Yeah, there are Negro phenotype people in Malaysia. That out of Africa theory even is a psyops to a degree. But y'all don't understand because they erased our history. You see, we used to be something completely different. But y'all don't understand swarthy and what that means. But nah, I'm super tapped in. And you know what I'm saying? We can go all day. Because I know we've always been there. I know that there were black kings in Europe. And they erased this history. This is called destiny swapping, y'all. Come on. Man, this heart is, hey, why is Saint Maurice a black saint on a coin in Germany in 1614? Go check it out in the museum. Go check this out. Y'all don't even know what's going on. Y'all don't even know one of the three wise magi was black. And they canonically depicted him as black. Man, this history gets so deep, and we're going to expose it. This is part 2. You know, a lot of people don't understand how they transmuted and stole our identity. You know what I'm saying? This gets real deep. I got so much, I don't even know where to go. But this is what I will say. We're going to talk about magic at this end of this video. Because what is magic and how do they use it? So magic is the art of influencing or predicting events and producing marvels using hidden natural forces. Hidden natural forces. This phone right here is hidden natural forces. This has gold, iridium, cobalt, and this conductivity that it uses is unseen and hidden, right? And it can control the actions of superhuman beings, right? Or spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings, right? Spiritual or superhuman beings. That is us. So magi, in its original root, just means craft or power. So this power that is being used, that can be abused, can be anything. And if you look, the root was techne, which is art, like arts and craft. So actually, anything with the power to influence you is a type of magic. It's that simple. It's actually not complicated. And Harry Potter and shows like Wizard of Waverly Place making it look all hairy, fairy, complicated, and spooky. That's all that is. All those monsters and stuff are just extinct species and races that they already killed off. Like, it's really not too deep, but it is.
You know, they lie to you and they play games with your genealogy. It's like a game of chess. You know, the knights can be very strategic pieces. But who were the Knights of the Order of Santiago in Portugal? You may be surprised. They may be your bloodline ancestors. This will be part number 14 of the Black Nobility of Europe series. So let's get into it. Now, they claim that people who look like us in Portugal in the 1500s were either slaves or lower class citizens. This painting is called The King's Fountain, dated to the 1500s. This is a depiction of Portugal in the 1500s. Notice this black knight with a red cross on his shoulder. Notice these three gentlemen at the bottom. Notice the horseman with an afro. Notice the gentleman helping him on his horse. Notice the gentleman with the orange vest getting off his boat. Okay? Very interesting. And there are various other people in this painting who look like us. So that lets us know. And again, according to the article at the bottom, Joaquin Arena, there are 79 black people in this painting. And again, not only were people who look like us there, they had positions of authority. Now, this is just a close-up of the knight. He's wearing a red cross. That is the Order of Santiago. And they know this, okay? And notice how elaborate and highly decorated his horse is. And again, the name of the painting is the King's Fountain, okay? And you can pause the screen if you want to read the wiki snippet at the top. Now, Charles V, who looks like us, when he had control of the Order of Santiago, notice the second thing I have underlined. It says hereditary transmission even in the female line. So when we see these various black knights, we should first assume that they inherited this position through bloodline until proven otherwise, okay? Now, this page is very important. I'm not going to read this whole page. I'll be coming from this book. This book is called Black Africans in Renaissance Europe. This was published by Cambridge University. This is not Afrocentric. A lot of well-known scholars and historians contributed to this book. Now, I'll be coming from page 160. If you want to pause and read this whole page, you can. I'm just going to highlight one thing from that page, okay? Now, notice what I have underlined in red. It says, the records are not clear about Panasco's appointment. That is very, very important. They're letting us know that the records are not clear about Panasco, and also there are no records or inscriptions, and the artist did not identify that knight as Panasco. Remember that. That's important. The records are not clear. But again, they just told us the records are not clear about Panasco, and also we know that the artist did not identify this knight. But look how they promote the knight. Look how they promote the knight. Look at that. Panasco, the freed slave who served as court jester, and then they're going to say he became a knight. I want you to be conscious of that. That is narrative. They just told you the records aren't even clear, and then the artist did not identify the knight. There are no inscriptions saying who that knight is. And let me say this. The title of the painting is called The King's Fountain. If that knight did not look like us, I wonder who they think it might be. Very interesting. But let's talk about the documented black knights that they know about that are historical, coming from the same book, and I'll be from page 160. I'm just going to read these three knights underlined in red. You have Luis Perez, Di Pedro de Silva, Manuel Goncalves Doria. These are all confirmed historical black knights of the Order of Santiago. They could be your ancestors, okay? Now, this is another black knight. And again, this is just a wiki snippet. His name is Henrique Diaz. Notice what I have underlined. A black man. Now, he was a knight of the Order of Christ. That's another Portuguese military order. Notice the second thing I have underlined in red. It is the former order of Knights Templar. Very, very interesting. Now, this is an article by PBS where they discuss Queen Charlotte's ancestry. Okay, let's see who they think her ancestry traces to. Okay, just gonna read what I have underlined. It says, a black branch of the Portuguese royal house. Very, very interesting. Black Portuguese nobility. And again, they said it. I didn't. Now, this is just a wiki article on the Santiago surname. Okay, let's just read the underline. It says, Afro-Creole noble family with roots in Portugal and Spain. Again, even in the surname, you have these connections to Portuguese and Spanish nobility. Very, very interesting. And one quick note about the word Creole, how they're using it. Let me say this. Who was mixing with who, if you know what I mean? Now, this video is from the article at the top of the page. You can go to the page and watch it. This gentleman who looks like us, his name is Curtis Santiago. They did an interview with him as he was looking at the very painting that we've been discussing, the King's Fountain. He's been doing his genealogy, and when you watch the video, he comments, "Wow, I did not know it was this many black people in the painting." Very, very interesting. Again, his name is Curtis Santiago. Okay? All right. Well, I just want to let you know, your surname may be way more interesting than you think. And don't disregard names when you come across Spanish names, French names, English names, European names, or German names. You don't know who was who. Don't disregard your genealogy when you're doing your genealogy. Okay? All right. Y'all be blessed.
See, this is a palace built in 1628 in Africa, in Ethiopia. Now, in the distance, I don't know if you can see it, but you see right there, that's the palace of King Fasilides. And then over there, that's the palace of his son, King Yasu. Yasu is just Amharic for Joseph. That's why it sounds like Jesus, like Yasu. And then over there, that's the modest palace built by his son, Johannes. Now it's, you probably know that's John. Now, if you can see that building over there, that used to be the second largest library in Africa. It was bested only by the library in Alexandria, you know, and then we moved down, and then you see the third castle. I'm going to come this way. The fourth castle, that's the castle of King David. David is Amharic for David. So you see, these were all Christian kings, and a lot of this palace is in ruins because it was bombed by the British. Now this is Renan Mokri. Follow my hashtag Freelia Sharibu. That's why I'm going around the world. Talk to you guys later. Bye bye.
I feel like we're always misdirecting our anger in Africa. Whenever you hear people talking about things like destiny swapping, you hear them bringing up their grandmother or their friend down the street or some family member. Do you know the OG destiny swap? Colonization. When you think about how colonization left us and how it found us, that is the OG destiny swap. We basically traded lives with Europeans. Before Europeans interacted with any indigenous groups all around the world, they were in the dark ages or in a time period of stagnation. There was no growth, there was conflict, there were diseases. And once they started interacting with these groups, that's when they started to develop. That's the OG destiny swap. When you think about how Africa once used to be the knowledge hub of the world, some of the most famous European and Greek scholars literally used to study in Africa because that is how big it was. People like Pythagoras, Solon, Plato, all of these people were studying Africa. It was the knowledge hub of the world, and Europeans basically switch that. And I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but you realize how most of the modern world, as we call its development, is based off the suffering of people in Africa, in Asia, the global south basically. Most of these countries are developing because of the suffering they inflict on others, and there's almost a ritualistic element to it. When you look at how Africans used to live before, we had our own kingdoms, our own governments, our economies that were thriving. Everything about us was rooted in our culture, in our environment. It was rooted in our being and who we are, and it was thriving. But colonization basically disrupted that. It gave us a false destiny, a destiny that we should never have had.
If you read what the Greeks said, not what we think, but if you read what the Greeks said, they said they got everything from Egypt. They got all their knowledge from Egypt. Pythagoras spent 15 years in Egypt. And what did he have to do? He probably had to spend 5 years convincing them that he was worthy to get the knowledge that they had. Remember, knowledge was power. Knowledge was sacred. Knowledge was something you just didn't publish in the newspapers. Knowledge was guarded very closely because it was of tremendous value. You wouldn't give it to anybody. You would give it to somebody who was willing to shave his head and be a penitent for 5 years, and then you might start to tell him things. Okay? And the Greeks did this. Pythagoras did this. Other Greeks did this. And they said that they got all their knowledge from the Egyptians. Now, when did we come up with the idea that the Greeks created everything from scratch? Well, believe it or not, it happened in the 18th and 19th century. And it's an unfortunate fact of life that Romanticism, which has many great things about it, also has a dark side, which has to do with racism. And in the 18th and 19th century, it was decided that it was just not appropriate for all this knowledge to come from an African country. Where would that knowledge, if it survived to the time of the Roman Empire, where would it have been kept? Yes. In Alexandria, in the museum, the library at Alexandria. And what happened to the library? It was burned in a war. Okay? And at that point, what happened to those books that were burned? If they were written in living languages, there was a scholar someplace who had memorized the book and could just write it down again. But if it was in a dead language, like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, end of story. Can't be reconstructed.
There's a few passages, but they're really, it's like, so he's talking, if he does talk about skin color, this one we'll talk about it later, I'll pull it up later, but it's important to know when he does talk about skin color, he does say that Ethiopians and Egyptians are both black. So that one's probably gonna, freak people out, but that's just what Aristotle says.
And it's what this.
Is Jesus black? Absolutely. In modern day terms today, we would call him black. In biblical terms, he would be a Jew. In Revelation, the first chapter, it would say he had hair like wool and his skin was so dark as if it burned in a furnace. He was a dark-skinned man.
No one ever drew a photo of him back in the day?
There's a book called Russian Icons. And on page 7 of that book, it'll tell you that these images they're going to show survived the whitewashing of the Europeans. And it's not a book written by black people. When you open that up, you'll see the images of Jesus and Mary and Matthew and John, all of them.
They were all black?
All of them painted
Holy
black.
crap.
Vladimir Putin, he brought out the Russian icons showing the real images and how they were black.
So this is like the greatest psyop of all time then?
Absolutely. White man is full of psyop.
Israel was adjacent to Africa. It was the land of Ham, or the land of Ham. It was one land.
Yes.
What the Europeans did, they created that artificial canal and separated
separate
yes.
Africa from Israel.
Right. So now most people think, and they created a term called the Middle East. The term Middle East was created by another white man called Alfred Mahan Thayer. Yes. So now when you think Israel, people go Middle East, white people, or Arabs. They don't think of people like you or I.
Europeans made up the Middle East, and they did it the way they do everything, by lying, renaming, redrawing, and detonating with maps, treaties, and bombs. There was no Middle East before Europe needed it to exist. Not in language, not in geography, not in any indigenous worldview. The people of the region called it Bilad al-Sham, the lands of the north, or Greater Syria, al-Mashriq, or the east, al-Jazeera, the island, Kazakhstan, Hijaz, Yemen, Kufa, Basra, Jund, Philistine, not the middle of the east of Europe. The very phrase Middle East was a colonial hallucination, coined by American naval officer Alfred Thayer Mahan in 1902, popularized by British colonial planners in the decades that followed, and locked into place by the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916. That was the moment two European powers, France and Britain, secretly divided the lands of the collapsing Ottoman Empire between themselves like hyenas circling a wounded lion. France got Syria and Lebanon, which they invented as a Maronite majority enclave in 1920. to reward their preferred Christian population. Britain got Iraq, Transjordan, now Jordan, and Palestine, where they opened the door to Zionist settlement as payment for World War I alliances, igniting a century-long catastrophe still unfolding. There was no Iraq, there was no Jordan, there was no Israel. There was only the collapsing Ottoman Vilayet system, Baghdad, Mosul, Basra, provinces with tribal networks, religious courts, confederated power. And when the Ottomans fell, the Europeans didn't restore what had existed. They fabricated new states, inserted puppet monarchies like the Hashemite family in both Iraq and Jordan, and drew borders so illogical they ran through rivers, deserts, and people. They split up Kurdistan across 4 nations, divided the Druze, bisected Sunni and Shia communities, trapped Palestinians in a settler colonial nightmare, and turned Lebanon into a confessional time bomb by freezing religious representation into a colonial power-sharing gridlock. And they justified all of it by claiming to be bringing civilization to people who had libraries, while their own ancestors were still chasing pigs through mud. They called it Middle East because they couldn't see anything unless it was in relation to themselves. India was the Far East. Europe was the center. So this region became the middle, not based on its own historical gravity, just its proximity to European greed. And the phrase worked. It flattened thousands of years of history. Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, Ayyubid, Fatimid, Umayyad, into a single vague region where white men could play empire like a game of Risk. They turned sacred pilgrimage routes into colonial railways, multilingual cities like Aleppo and Baghdad into military outposts, inland trade networks into oil concessions, or companies like Anglo-Persian Oil, now BP. And when people resisted, they called them terrorists. They crushed uprisings with gas, like the British did to Iraqis in the 1920s. They bombed Damascus, occupied Cairo, besieged Fallujah, and called it order. So no, the Middle East is not ancient. It's not cultural. It's not real. It's a European invention, born of petroleum, paranoia, and post-war partition. What is real? Al-Quds, Basra, Sana'a, Shiraz, cradle of mathematics, astronomy, medicine, architecture, theology, the lands of Ibn Khaldun and Al-Farabi, of the Banu Musa and the House of Wisdom. They didn't need to be named. They already were. The moment Europe arrived, they were renamed, reframed, and blamed for everything Europe broke. Europeans made up the Middle East to carve civilizations into oil fields, divide unity into borders, and collapse empires that dared to govern without white approval. And the only thing older than the term Middle East is the blood spilled every time someone tries to reclaim what Europe tried to erase. Cope.
This is Africa. This is Africa.
The Europeans, I mean, because we know the Europeans classify this as the Middle East. But this is Africa.
This is Africa. This is north of Africa. Now they make Libya and Morocco and Tunis, they say it North Africa. It's West, the West. We are in the North. I want to say I'm sorry that my English is not so good, but I will try, to explain or to teach the people that don't know that we are here in this land before maybe more in 2,000 of years in this area, in Sinai Desert. It's not far from here. It's near the Jordan-Israeli border. There is our land, my grandfather's land. So So before, you know, before the state of Israel, the border of this Israel or Palestine is not in this border today. It's very near. Before it's El Arish in Egypt today. There is the border of the holy land. This is the religion thing. So many people, they don't know that the black people here in this land, it's not for the last 100 years or something like this. It's more than 1,000 of years. It was black. I know about the history of Beni Hilal. I know about the Zir Salem history. Everybody knows this. Most of the Bedouin here, most of them, they come from the Arab Gulf. They know, they can know they're not original here. They know that we are the original people here in this land. I'm here, original here for 1,000 years. But the other tribes, I want to talk about the Bedouin. The other tribes here, all the Bedouin here.
Other black Bedouins?
Not the black, even the white.
Even white Bedouin.
Not the Bedouin, there's no white Bedouin.
Yeah.
Bedouin all black. It's not like me.
Yeah. Little light skin, like
between white and
mixed.
All this tribe you see the Bedouin here, you tell them. This will tell you I'm from Arab Saudi, the original. This tribe will tell you, yeah, I'm from north of Jordan. Everybody will tell you he's not original for in this land. He came, not me.
But you came. Did you originally?
They came. But me, I say I'm here. So they have to be clear. If you discuss with them, okay, they say, all of you come here, okay? Who was living this land?
They say it's a black man.
The black man. And before maybe 2000 and a half, there's the Hebrews. The Hebrews.
The Hebrews were black as well, right?
Yeah, there was in this land, there was just the Bedouin, the black Bedouin like me, and the Hebrews. That's it.
Racism in the Arab world. Let's talk about it. This is Mariam Hussein from Morocco 2020 doing blackface on TV. Here is Tanya Saleh from Lebanon doing blackface in Lebanese TV. Here is an Egyptian show doing blackface in 2018 in mockery to African people. Here are some of the victims of blackface, like the Sudanese are commonly mocked in Arabic media. Melanated Egyptian Nubian, which is a minority in southern Egypt today. Also the Yemeni black Arabs or melanated Arabs and minority. And the funny thing is that these melanated Sudanese Egyptians, Yemenis are some of the original people, but they are usually in a lower caste in society and heavily oppressed by racism.
When the Arabs went into Sudan, you mixed your blood with the Sudanese. And the Sudanese look just like the black man and woman in America. And some of them refuse to say they are Africans, they say they are Arabs. And the darker skinned Sudanese have been suffering. This is what their fight was over for 20 years. It was injustice to the black. This is real. So you're going to have to repent too for what was done by you to the darker skinned Arabs, to the...
And now Putin is trying to show his other people, you're not matching the color of the promised people. So there's got to be a big problem. You don't match the color of the prophets. So who is it that you think you represent? So these are big times in dunya of a truth that's coming, a heavenly truth through material servants. When Allah disrupts the material hagagami, that which is trying to control this earth, Allah is now disrupting it, smashing it, confusing its players. So these are an amazing time to see what these people are going to do now.
Ladies and gentlemen, people of Russia, today we stand on the precipice of a monumental revelation, a moment that redefines not only our understanding of history, but also the path forward for our great nation. In an extraordinary discovery hidden beneath centuries of lore and legend, we have opened what can only be described as the oldest vault known to mankind. What we found within its ancient confines challenges the very fabric of our beliefs and heralds a new dawn for our country. Within this vault, we discovered figures of biblical proportions, characters that many have read about, debated, and revered. These figures, preserved against the sands of time, reveal a truth that is as profound as it is transformative. They are all black. This revelation, this undeniable truth, stands before us not as a contradiction to our faith, but as a testament to the diversity and unity that faith embodies. As your president, I see this moment not as a challenge to our beliefs, but as an opportunity to embrace a wider, more inclusive understanding of our history and spirituality. Russia, in its rich tapestry of cultures, traditions, and people, is uniquely positioned to lead the world into this new era of understanding and acceptance. From this day forward, let us proclaim our nation under the guidance of Black Jesus, a figure who represents not just the cornerstone of Christian faith, but also a symbol of the universal values of love, compassion, and brotherhood. This Black Jesus, whose likeness and history have been unveiled from the oldest vault, is a message to us all that divinity knows no color, that spiritual truth transcends race, and that our common humanity binds us more tightly than our differences divide us. Let this discovery remind us that history is not just the story of those who wield power, but also of those whose contributions have been overlooked or forgotten. It challenges us to re-examine what we know, to question our assumptions, and to open our hearts to the broader possibilities of understanding and faith. As we embark on this journey of discovery and understanding, let us do so with open minds and compassionate hearts. Let us build a nation that truly reflects the teachings of Black Jesus, a nation that stands for justice, equality, and love for all, regardless of race or creed.
They know that you are God, my brother, what they call God. They know that's who you are. See, that's why even when this person, when they say name Jesus, what he tell his disciples? The kingdom is within you. He's telling you God is within you. So you're looking for a place up in the sky that you're going to go to. No, God is within you. They're telling you about this devil. Who is devil? You ever seen one? No, you can be a devil and you can be a God, because you decide. You're the one who determine if I do wrong or I do right. You are the duality that decides. Not a person standing on your right shoulder or your left shoulder. That is all a bunch of bullshit. Excuse my French. But what I'm saying to you is, we have to come into ourselves.
What we're seeing right now in real time is the contract, the destiny work contract that they signed to essentially steal, co-op, and pillage this world for its resources, its culture, its spiritual elevation. The contract is running out. That's why they acted up. I don't know how long that contract was to be for. The Hebrew Israelites talking about it's 400 years. I think, honestly, that contract was only going to last as long as Black people were going to be asleep. If you haven't noticed, there has been an overwhelming exodus out of the church, okay? This isn't to say that some of y'all not going to church, okay? But there's an overwhelming exodus of Black people leaving the church, as well as there is an overwhelming amount of white folks who are starting to understand the truth of what's going on. Stolen Legacy academically explains it best. That destiny swap that they did with us, it was to obtain the knowledge that it took Africans thousands of years to evolve to. There are just certain things spiritually that they just could not understand. And they were and here's the thing, just like right now, when are afraid, when they don't understand something, rather than sit the fuck down and calm down, they get violent. And that's exactly what they did. When they were kicked out of Egypt multiple times before y'all famous little Plato and Socrates motherfuckers came into Africa, y'all was kicked out because you were spiritually immature. You were spiritually immature. Mind you, the issue that the Africans had with y'all back then was not because of race. It was because you were so spiritually immature. If you didn't understand something, you immediately resort to violence. And here you are today, 1,000+ years later, you don't understand something and you resort to violence. The destiny swap that you've done on black folk has run its course, okay? Black people in this country resting, that right there, we are taking our own shit back. We're taking our own spirituality back. Us resting is us intentionally breaking the generational curses. We are not waiting for no savior to come and save us. That is what y'all try to lie to us, to keep us in this cycle, to keep us confeeding the destiny swap that you sign off on us. And now black people are no longer going to participate in the fuckery that y'all have installed. And now the chaos that you've created, the lies, the matrix that you've created is crumbling. And here's the thing. What scares me about y'all is that you know this is happening. Your spirit is telling you that this is happening. That's why you're upset that black people are not protesting with y'all. We're not communicating with y'all. We're not doing none of those things because you are understanding who we really are. And we are coming to understand who we really are. We are breaking our own generational curses, and y'all are not ready for that. And what I advise my black family, continue to evolve. There's a spiritual elevation that we are all taking part in. Just rest. Just rest. Stay in your home. Love on your family. Plant your gardens. Do your thing and rest. The destiny swap contract has run its course. Everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah. You know what? Hell yeah. Yeah.
The enemy used this experience to get me to hate black people and to hate the people, the chosen people of the Most High. And it has been revealed to me through many witnesses and through scripture that after the fall of Jerusalem, that the people were dispersed, just like the word says. And when they were dispersed, many of them, most of them went into North Africa. And they did kind of blend with the folks of Ham, of Canaan, Ham. They blended, and some of them kept to themselves and some of them didn't, but a lot of them ended up in West Africa. And there was a whole area over there that was the kingdom of Judah, and that was the prime target for the slave trade. And that's where the white men, the evil that's in this world, the Esau's, the Edoms, that hate the people of God, that hate Jacob, that want to destroy him, they enslaved them. And just like in Egypt, like they went into captivity for 400 years, they came. They were brought in chains. They were brought in ships. We're going to read scripture. You're going to take this to the Lord. They are the chosen people of Israel. The black people that you would call them. They are the Hebrews of the Bible. They are Israel. They are Hebrews. They're not black. They're not African American. They're not any other names that we got so confused about as we were growing up. What to call them. They don't even know what to call themselves because they don't have their identity, because it's been stolen from them because of their sin. Because they rejected the law of God. They rejected the law of God. And so they suffered the punishment of the law in Deuteronomy 28, which we're going to take a look at.
It always makes me laugh when people pull out biological arguments for white supremacy when our genes are recessive. Like, if I were to have children with any person with any amount of melanin, brown, black skin, it doesn't matter. My genes are recessive. Same with my eye color. My green eyes, even as far back on both sides of my family, they have brown eyes for white people. I just happen to be some sort of glitch, and my dad happened to be a glitch. And it's so funny to me because it's like, why are you gonna sit here and say, oh, our genes are so much better? I can't even go in the fucking sun. My skin turns bright pink, bright red every time I go outside. Can my eyes take any sort of sunlight at all? Like, I need sunglasses 24/7. So when I wear my glasses outside, it's actually a problem because I have to choose between wearing contacts and my eyes being uncomfortable, or wearing sunglasses to protect my eyes. So no, it is not an inherently supremacist or superior traits that we have. If we're gonna go that route, we are going to lose, because if anything, it's the genes that can withstand the sun and the heat, and that those genes will get passed on in subsequent generations, which there's no guarantee that mine will. I think we are all human beings, we are all equal. But if you're gonna pull out the supremacist superior argument, it's not white skin. It is not white skin. Just pull out a Punnett square, babe.
In the sunshine, everybody loves the sunshine. Sunshine, everybody loves the sunshine.
So I'm out sunbathing in the garden yesterday, and I forgot to take my face mask off. I'm really not happy, guys.
In the garden yesterday, couldn't find my own glasses, so I thought I'd weave it.
You tired, trying to strike a chord, and it's probably A minor. They not like us, they not like us, they not like us. They not like us, they not like us, they not like us.
Mate, I look like that fucking ice cream, that Neapolitan shit. Chocolate, strawberry, vanilla.
Nothing beats a jet to holiday.
I made myself sick working in the sun yesterday. I know I'm getting older, but this sun is so intense, it's so hot, that 2.5 hours of me working outside, and it just, all of a sudden, it was out of nowhere. I was fine 1 minute, and the next minute, I was on the ground, and I guess that I had, like, lost consciousness. And when I came to, I felt like all of my nerve endings were tingling, like I couldn't feel my fingers, I couldn't feel my toes, my feet. I immediately went inside, like literally holding onto the walls outside. Tunnel vision, like everything was black from here on, like from here on. I got in the bathtub, ran some water, and I sat in the bathtub, cold water, for probably 30 minutes. And I was dry heaving, not to be gross, but there was just nothing left. I don't know how a person can go from just fine to like done, just done. I have no idea. I've never in my life experienced anything like it. And it took me all day yesterday and half the day today of just being inside, recuperating, to even go outside. Folks, be careful out there. It's unbelievable.
Why is it that we can handle heat with our black skins better? Dark skin absorbs sunlight, yes. Black people in the same situation will absorb more sunlight than white people, yes. Making your body hotter, yes. Which means you might have to drink more water. So you're saying, why not turn white at the equator? Yeah. Just, why isn't everyone in Africa white? Right. So you're not absorbing sunlight. The skin absorbs ultraviolet light, okay? Ultraviolet light gives you skin cancer and you die. Melanin absorbs ultraviolet light and does not give you skin cancer. Skin cancer is 30 times more prevalent in white people than in black people. And when black people even get it, it's usually not in a part exposed to where the sun hit it. It's like on your bottom of your feet.
I don't know why we keep getting told this, but melanin is not a skin pigment. It is a biological antenna. And there are people who carry the most of this that were never taught what it actually does. When people talk about melanin, they stay at the level of skin tone and the social functions that have been created around it. And while those concepts are real and carry giant consequences in the physical world, stopping to talk about melanin there is the same thing as looking at, say, a radio tower and only discussing the color of its paint, because its function is infinitely more significant than its appearance. Melanin is what they call a superconductor. And in biological terms, that means it is a compound that absorbs every frequency of light across the full electromagnetic spectrum at the exact same time, which is something that no other biological substance in the human body does. And the value of that absorption power is that it makes melanin-rich tissue uniquely sensitive to electromagnetic frequency in a way that directly connects with the nervous system and the brain's capacity to process information that exists outside the range of what the 5 ordinary senses can detect. The pineal gland, which every ancient civilization across Africa and Kemet regarded as the bodily seat of higher consciousness and inner sight, produces melanin and is directly regulated by the electromagnetic environment of the body it exists within, which means that the connection between melanin consciousness and the ability to perceive beyond the ordinary bandwidth of human awareness is a biological function that was deeply understood and deliberately practiced by civilizations that utilized it in its highest levels. Most people with this biological trait have never been taught this because those aware of what they possess do not need external control to define their worth or capabilities.
With blue eyes. I just wanted to show you what the world looks like from our perspective.
Oh my god. Oh, I can't see.
Actually, yes. If your eyes are lighter in color, like blue or green or hazel, they might be more sensitive to light. You see, lighter eye colors have less pigment, less melanin to protect them from sunlight and UV rays, and it also makes you more likely to be a sun sneezer.
Anybody else notice that you can be 100% black, but you could never be 100% white? When I say black, I just mean Homo sapien. I just mean human. Black people, African people, are the only people in the world, in the entire world, that are 100% Homo sapiens, never mixed with any Neanderthal blood. This is the reason why if I take a DNA test, or any other white person does, they are going to have a percentage of African in them. Now, if an Asian person or a Native American person takes a DNA test, it could just say 100% Asian, 100% Native American. But that's because DNA tests only go back a couple thousand years, which means two things. White people were black 2,000 years ago. We were African, and it wasn't that fucking long ago. And two, that means 2,000 years ago, there were Asian people. There were Native American people. We can prove that. But if you go back tens of thousands of years, if you go back even further, even they will have the common ancestor, which is the African. This is why I believe white supremacy is fucking stupid. You're proud of something that could never be 100% achieved. There's no such thing as a 100% pure blood European. Everybody was mixed with Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA, except for black people. African people are the only true humans in this world.
So here on Earth, the people should be predominantly black or various shades of brown skin. And that makes perfect sense, because if you look at Homo erectus, the beings that were on Earth At the time the Anunnaki first arrived here, the species that were used to create us, they were a dark-skinned global species. They existed basically everywhere on the planet, and they were all dark-skinned. There were no white-skinned Homo erectus, even in the coldest regions of Earth at that time. So white skin is not native to our planet.
People are waking up.
So when are white Christians gonna admit that if Jesus showed up in America in 2020, he would be a black man shot by the police? Think about it. He literally was a black man. He literally was a black man.
He literally was a black man. He literally was a black man.
And he was murdered by his judicial system because he went against the system of power that was oppressing people. Like, that's literally America.
Okay, so I know you're a follower. That's why I don't understand why you chose my page to push the white Christian agenda that Christ could have been white. Jesus Christ was a Jew in the Middle East, and the Bible describes him as having bronze skin, ashen feet, and hair of wool. That's a black or a brown man. The only white people in Israel at the time of Christ were the Romans. Christ wasn't a Roman, he was an Israelite, a black or a brown Israelite. White Jesus was created by white Christians to perpetuate the idea that the white race is the supreme and divine race, and to say that the Savior of the world was a white man. Because God forbid, no pun intended, a black or a brown man be the Savior of a white man. God forbid, no pun intended, a white man kneel at the feet of a black or a brown man and thank him for saving their lives and love him and worship him.
Some will believe the truth till a white person tells it.
Out there in this great big world. Yes, this is your brother Dana coming to you from the city of Chicago. Shalom, shalom to all of my Hebrew family members. To you and to those who right now are not aware of your true identity. So to those of you who would call yourself black or African American or a person of color, I want to share this with you from the bottom of my heart. Tonight I was out here on my deck doing some painting and some, fixing up, and I was listening to some worship music, and I was talking to the Most High Yah, and then in the middle of this song, there came on a commercial, but this commercial was one of promoting the gospel of Jesus Christ and reading from scripture that, we must go out there and we must spread this gospel. And I heard the passion in that, and when I turned and looked, my eyes confirmed what I thought I was hearing, and there it was a Hebrew man who was not aware that he was a Hebrew man. But at that moment, this sucker punch, I was like a pain of grief, hit me. And this white supremacy belief, this white superiority belief is so powerful. Not only has it infiltrated you, but it has now gotten you to run and infiltrate it across this earth. And with passion, you've been doing it. And that sucker punch hit me because many of you are not even aware yet that through your belief of white Christianity and what it has taught you here in America, you are spreading a white Jesus Christ. And that image of white Jesus Christ has destroyed this white Christianity for you, my African Americans, specifically right now for you. It has destroyed your families. How? Because it has destroyed your men, incarceration, shootings, which has affected your family, like that even of welfare. And those elements have affected your communities, not yet even including the drugs that we planted. This white Christianity and the white Jesus Christ that it teaches, that it has taught you now to teach and to carry on, has taken away your beauty by whitewashing that the Bible is all black people of God. It took away your beauty by whitewashing and making the Pauls and making the Moses and making the Joshua and the Calebs and making Jesus white. It has taken away your royalty, because prior to Christianity and the invasion of it, you were kings and you were queens. But the biggest thing it has done, beyond all of that, is that white Christianity has taken away your true identity. It has taught you, based on how politically correct or incorrect you may be, that you were a Negro, you were a color, you were black, you were African American, and now a person of color. When the reality is, in the truth outside of white Christianity, is that you are the true chosen people of the true God, the Most High Yah. And the Jesus Christ that has infiltrated this world as a white man is a false God. For Yeshua HaMashiach is the true. And according to Scripture, this man was beautiful because it said that his hair was curly and thick like wool and white in beauty. And that his feet and his skin would be like burned bronze. So my prayer is that you, wherever you are, when you hear this message, if you know your Hebrew, I praise the Most High Yah that that the Most High Yah has opened you to see this truth. If you still are black or African American or a person of color, an evangelical or a white Christian follower, I pray that you will see this truth. And that you will do as the Most High Yah has asked all of us to do, and that is to come out of her. And I'm going to specifically say the her is white Christianity, white evangelicalism, everything that you and I have been taught. And when that young black man, Hebrew man, was saying, go ye into all the world, we must, the Ruach, she punched me. The depth of this lie. To him that has an ear to hear and to those who have an eye to see, I pray that the Most High Yah will open your eyes so that you will come back into your beauty. You will come back into your royalty. You will come back into your communities. You will come back as families. Your men will return. Your women will return because your identity will be embraced. That you are kings and queens. You are not cursed, but just the opposite. You are chosen. And I say, hallelujah. Shalom, family.